I feel big tech companies are not focusing on industry use cases. They are focusing on the core tech. So it auto detects, it auto tags all the products that I have in my fridge. Add another layer on top of it. It can automatically start prescribing me that, hey, you have these 4 ingredients in your fridge, you can possibly make this dish.
What do you think if someone wants to build a startup? What problem you have seen that is not solved currently? कैसे आप advise करोगे?
Understand the business first. Who is your audience?
So hello everyone, today we have Aishwarya here, a senior AI advisor at Microsoft.
Hi Arnoor, it's amazing to be here with you on your podcast. I've been watching all of your podcasts for such a long time. So thank you for inviting me here. Very quickly about myself, I'm part of Microsoft as well, as you know. I'm a senior AI advisor for Microsoft for startups, getting to work with startups every day, day in, day out. The role is similar to being a fractional CTO to them and helping them build their AI tech stack. It's a perfect day job for me as I'm very passionate about working with startups, very passionate about building AI applications. So it's like the best of both worlds that I could have asked for.
So can you define AI advisor role at Microsoft? First of all, what is it about? It's a new created role. What is the inspiration about? What is the motivation behind it and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is indeed like a new team. Like entire Microsoft for Startups AI Advisory is a new team. We have recently been split into 2 different organizations, which is AI Advocacy and AI Advisory. And what we're trying to do is help out all the startups who are building AI ML related tools, not just from like a technical AI perspective, but also like help them utilize the GPU in the best way possible, give them like best practices for model development, model deployment, distributed machine learning training and things like that. And what the AI advisory team is doing, that's what like my day job is. What I'm doing is work with startups one-on-one. So get on a call with them for an hour and go through the issues that they are facing, debug the issues that they have on their side, try to recreate it on my side and see like how I can, like share those how I can share those debugging sessions with them, or do like workshops with them and help them understand that if they are using a large language model, how should they fully fine tune it, or how should they use techniques like LoRa that can help them fine tune it with a very less memory consumption and cost consumption, etc. So that's what I'm doing. It's very one-on-one. Versus what the AI advocacy team is doing is building these assets for one-to-many. So they are going to work on technical blog posts, doing workshop at conferences, doing sessions at conferences, working on training sessions to a lot of audience. So that's the difference between advocacy and advisory. So my day-to-day is all like AI/ML questions with startups. Can vary very differently because some startups are using different set of open source tools. They are using a mix and match of like Azure and open source and things like that. So it's a really good learning experience for me as well.
Amazing. Now let's start with open source because you have seen so many open source startups, and I want to start with open source because recently a Microsoft engineer figured out a vulnerability in Linux-based operating system in XC library. You know about that?
I have not used it.
Yeah, so that's okay. But that vulnerability is so dangerous that whole library can expose the data of the operating system. We right now use Unix-based operating system, iPhone, Android. These all are Unix-based. So this vulnerability exposes the Jenga, जो game है, vertical game with stacks of the internet, that we are dependent on open source library, that one open source library of, let's say, Linux is developed by maintained by 1 or 2%. And if that breaks, that is built on top of another open source library. And these libraries are used by a bigger project. So these layers are very dangerous. So similarly, Llama 3, which is open source AI. So people see the risk of this. Have you ever thought about risk of open sourcing?
Not really. So here's the thing, right? Like a lot of times using open source does introduce these kind of risks because there's things around like, how do you maintain it if it is going to be maintained over a period of time? What if your code compatibility across different modules stop working out at some point in time? So it comes with that risk, but in the machine learning community, I can speak from like a machine learning perspective. In the machine learning community, there is a lot of funding that goes behind open source technology. I've seen like the professor that I worked with when I was at Columbia. He's also at Microsoft now. He's a principal research scientist at Microsoft now, Andres Muller. He also had a ton of funding to maintain scikit-learn. Similarly to like any of the other machine learning libraries, there is a lot of funding that goes in to maintain this because of these risks, right? Because there are so many organizations, so many companies, so many applications that are dependent on these open source toolkits that they want to make sure that it is maintained over time and it does not come with any like compatibility challenges. So this is again purely from a machine learning perspective. I'm not so well versed with like every other thing that's going on in the open source community, but at least from like machine learning perspective, the communities are very, very passionate about what they're doing. There's a lot of like people involved from academia, from like industry, students and like researchers. There's so many people involved in this who are like working together to make sure that, you know, it doesn't become that stale piece in your application stack which is going to break it.
So currently you help a lot of startups in America. You help them get the right funding as well as you get them with the right advice, right?
Yeah.
So now thinking about country like India, which cannot compete with the capital of building these LLMs, but they can afford to build startup using those LLMs. So what would you advise after looking at so many startups? How many startups, by the way, you have advised so far?
I would have probably spoken with around like 60 to 70 startups so far. And most of them are actually focused on Bay Area. At least like through Microsoft, like the startups that I'm speaking with are concentrated in Bay Area because I have a team in Bangalore. So Microsoft for Startups has a team in Bangalore, and that's where they are the advisors who are working with Indian startups. I'll tell you, like, I'll start saying this one thing. Like, as an Indian, I'm very proud to say that Indian startups are amazing with Jugaad. It is, you know, like, it's evident in so many cases. Like, even with the Chandrayaan mission, we built that in like a fraction of a cost of what US and like other countries have been building that the same technology for. So it's like, you know, it's undoubtable that India has mastered the skill of Jugaad. They know how to like, you know, run in a budget. They know how to optimize budgets. And I have seen, like, to be honest, I wouldn't say that Indian startups are not getting as much funding as US because now they have started acquiring customer base in the US. I'm seeing, like, I'm personally also advising startups outside of my Microsoft job. Like, I'm an angel investor for startups, so I advise startups outside of my full-time job as well. And I see that they are moving their user base to the US because India has the highest population. So any application that's being built in the US, even if it's like, you know, innovated in US, developed in US, the founders are in US, they need Indian audience. That's the only way they're going to increase their user base, right? We have the game of having so much population and so many educated people, so many people who are like literate from an internet perspective. They have like the digital literacy, they have phones, they have smartphones in their hands, they're actively using all sorts of like applications. They are on Instagram, they are on like, you know, all sorts of social media, they are using internet. So like evidently that it's obviously the case that US startups want people from India to be their users. And the same thing, that's where like it's going to be a two-way street where Indian startups are also establishing their bases in the US because of two reasons. Obviously, one is for funding. Once they are able to showcase that, hey, we have a MVP, this is working, we already have an initial set of customers from a B2B perspective, or like, you know, we have a number of users who are like consistent users who have been using this over the past 3 months, 6 months, etc. And this is how the user growth is looking like. They get that funding in the US. So they're coming here for two reasons. One is for funding and the other is for getting good advisors. It's really, really important for startups to have good advisors. And that's probably one of the reasons why startups like working with incubators like YC or like, you know, A16Z and things like that, because it's not just the money that they're getting. They are getting people who are experts in the field and can help the startups build a sustainable business. It's not just कि like, you know, initially idea अच्छा लगा, हमने कुछ बनाया, 3 साल बाद competition बढ़ रहा है, user base नहीं जा रहा है उतना, revenue नहीं बढ़ रहा है, how do you keep up? you need advisors to help you with that. So ये दो reasons की वजह से I see a lot of like startups building their base, Indian startups like building their base in the US so that they can get funding, advisors, and like, you know, establish their brand in a bigger manner.
So just like YC, I think Microsoft is giving the similar ecosystem, right? Giving advice, giving the community they need. But what is currently lacking in a lot of startups? Because हर कोई AI डाल के, like they are creating, you know, the hype of their startup. और मैं देखता हूँ कि majority of LinkedIn पे people are working in AI. No matter how much AI is used in the startup, someone wants to mention AI in their LinkedIn status, or people are using the hype. So can you share what are the problems currently in the startup ecosystem and in startups which are using this hype?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, like, first thing first, AI तो like अभी ऐसा हो गया कि हर product में AI चिपका देते हैं. The other day I was looking at this meme that came on Instagram. It was like Costco में Oral-B toothbrushes बिक रहे हैं. It says powered by AI. तो हालत ये चल रहा है. To be honest, if you were to ask me this 10 years from now, AI is going to become a tool like internet, right? हर आदमी इंटरनेट यूज कर ही रहा है. अभी से if you were looking at like 20 years ago or like, you know, 25 years ago, काफी कम लोग इंटरनेट पे काम कर रहे थे. इन द सेंस लाइक काफी कम लोगों के पास इंटरनेट का एक्सेस था, या काफी कम लोग इंजीनियर्स थे जो इंटरनेट के प्रोटोकॉल में काम कर रहे थे, या फ्रंट एंड बैक एंड पे काम कर रहे थे. जो अभी सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग बहुत रिडंडेंट हो चुका है. लाइक बहुत सारे सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर्स हैं एंड काफी वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड करियर स्पेस बन चुका है वो. यही मेरे को ट्रैक लग रहा है द वे इट्स गोना चेंज विद AI. AI is a toolkit. That's all it is. It's not nothing like a magic box, or you know, it's going to revolutionize the world, or it's going to like completely change the way humanity exists. I don't see it that way, at least in the near future. The way I see it, it's becoming a tool that's being embedded in every different businesses for different level of optimizations. मैकेनिकल जो लोग मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर्स थे वो भी इवेंचुअली AI के बारे में जानने लगेंगे, क्योंकि उनको अपने ऑटोमेशन के लिए AI की जरूरत पड़ेगी. केमिस्ट्री के जो लोग हैं जो केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग में हैं, उनको भी AI जानने का जरूरत पड़ेगा एट सम पॉइंट इन टाइम, बिकॉज उनका इंडस्ट्री भी वो चीज यूज करने लग जाएगा. क्रिएटिव लाइक आर्टिस्ट एंड क्रिएटिव प्रोफेशनल्स, उनके फील्ड में भी AI is getting integrated. They are using like all kinds of tools to help them be more productive. That's how it is going to like, you know, embed in different industries. And हर कोई अपने आप को अभी ना AI एक्सपर्ट बुलाने लग गया. लाइक कोई भी अगर रिमोटली भी कुछ भी AI पे काम किया, या ChatGPT भी भाई 1 महीने के लिए यूज कर लिया, they are like, I'm an AI expert, I use AI, you know. That's the kind of hype that people are going behind without realizing that there is power in the tools that is being built with AI. But we are also nearing to a point where it will be a very regulated field on how and when to use AI. We have obviously seen tons of companies getting sued left and right. Ki you have used this data, you have used data which is like copyrighted by a different company, you have used some person's information without their consent, and so on and so forth, right? So that is one of the major risks. Just because a technology can do something does not mean it should be used to do that.
Absolutely.
So simple. न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी है का मतलब ये नहीं है तुम हर किसी को न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी का पावर दे दो, राइट? That's a simple example. Same thing. AI is not like that detrimental at this point in time, but it is the same thing that just because something can be done does not mean that you do it at a large scale. So that's where I'm saying that regulation is going to become a very, very big thing. And startups there are two kinds of things that I have seen with startups. A lot of startups are going behind cool gadgets or like cool tech without understanding that what is a market for it. So startups are not able to understand what's the business value proposition of it. Is it going to be a subscription based model, single time use model? Are you going to expose APIs? Are you going to sell products? How exactly are you going to build this sustainable business model out of it, right? That is something which is becoming very hard for startups to understand. The other thing that I'm seeing is wrappers, which in my opinion is a very, very bad way to build a sustainable business.
True, but I want to argue about wrappers. Perplexity is also a wrapper with search along with it, but that is very successful. So how do you identify?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you the problem that they're solving, and again, like this is purely my opinion, and I'll tell you like my insights and what I have seen in this space, right? Perplexity started as a wrapper. GPT ka wrapper banaya, and they are trying to extract different information and put it together out. You ask a question, it's going to be very prescriptive, give you the source from where it's pulling in the details. That's a agentic workflow that they have built on top of a wrapper. But there is one issue and one good thing I'll tell you about what I found about Perplexity. One, I'll start with the good thing, okay? One is that it's not just the only model that they're using. Perplexity over time has started utilizing human feedback in their application. They have started building their own foundational model on how the responses should look like, and they are not fine-tuning GPT for that. They are building their own foundational model, and वो लोग क्या कर रहे हैं कि they put an answer to you, and they ask you to annotate it. What are the sections that you like about the answer, what was useful, what was not useful, and things like that. Use that information to use like a RLHF on their model and tune their own foundational model in a better manner.
So can you expand RLHF for the audience?
RLHF is reinforcement learning human feedback. So you're basically using a reinforcement learning loop with human feedback, with the human annotations to improve your models. So that's what they're doing. So if you go to Perplexity, I can show you right now. So if you go to Perplexity, and it lets you like select a model. If you have a premium subscription, right, it lets you select a model using which you want to like try out. But basically you can select a model of their like foundational model and then use that to query the database. Now, one challenge I personally find is, eventually I'm sure like Perplexity is going to fix it. But I personally find from an ethical or like responsible AI perspective is, the way Google search works or like any other search engine works is, I ask a question and it gives me links. So it is up to my judgment on what links I read and what is the inference that I develop out of it. But the challenge that comes with a model like Perplexity is, even though it is giving me the sources from where it's pulling up, it is giving me an opinion. It is giving me one answer. So it can be skewed, it can be against my beliefs, it can reinforce my belief in a certain direction. And that's an ethical challenge is what I personally feel. Because of misinformation, there's probably going to be like, 50-60 genuine links, and like the rest of it, or like 40 to 50% of the links are misinformation. Sure, they are trying their best to solve the misinformation problem. So has Facebook and Instagram and like all other social media platforms, all other news platforms. They've been trying it for years together. It's not a short solution. There is no way that you can classify misinformation in the right way, at least at this point in time. So that is a challenge that I see from like an ethical standpoint, that if I were to ask a question on Google, I'm going to get a bunch of links, and I make my judgment after reading what I see there. So the responsibility is on me. But as soon as the Perplexity is giving you a solid answer, it is formulating an opinion, and somehow the responsibility flips back to them. That if they are giving me the right response, are they trying to manipulate my thoughts? Are they sharing anything that's going to reinforce my existing biases and things like that? So these are like the things that I've observed. Over time, maybe things will change, but yeah.
Totally agree. I mean, it gives you one-sided opinion. आप choose नहीं कर सकते. Only the links which Perplexity has permission to fetch data, only those links and sources can be used. It is allowed to use Reddit, but might not be allowed to use Quora. So थोड़े से pros and cons है, but I love Perplexity a lot because in terms of software engineering, if I want to search for a tutorial on Azure or AZ-CLI, any tutorial, and even Wall Street Journal said most accurate answers for tutorials where you want just one-side answers, tutorials,
exactly.
The best answers are from Perplexity.
Yeah,
among
100%.
all the
I use Perplexity as well. I use Perplexity. I use Claude. I use a ton of these softwares for like a lot of like testing, experimentation purposes for my personal use and all that. And I do agree. Like deterministic things, factual things are really good with Perplexity, where it's like, okay, it's gonna fetch like 4 or 5 steps for you, and it's gonna say, okay, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Works out great. But things that are weird are these like opinionated things, or like, essays, or sharing thoughts, and like that recommendations, or things that are like, there's no like right answer. It can be this, it can be that, it can be a mix of this and that. Those sort of things is where the challenge comes in. So that's again like my observation. But even like with models like Claude or like GPT-4o, it's not perfect. I feel whenever I'm using these to like get any written answers, it's very easy for me to tell that it's AI generated because it's too perfect. Humans are not too perfect. Everybody have their own individual personalities, their own quirks, their jargons, the tone is very different. So the imperfection is what makes us human, and the perfection is what makes the AI non-human, or like, identified to be like, hey, this is not human written.
True. Now, coming back to the topic of things missing in startups. So you're saying that just like we used to go to hackathons mein kya hota tha? It's about building that cool product rather than selling that cool product. So what your team works on is helping them sell things from this business point of view as compared to just building that cool product. What else you think is missing in the drive that startups need?
So I oftentimes say, so like, I'll probably rephrase this. My team is not helping them from a business standpoint. We are advisors. We are helping them with the tech stack in the majority of the cases. Technical acumen is definitely one of the biggest things. So this is where I say there are two parts of a strong startup. One is innovation, which is this cool things, things which will excite people, things that really change the way we work, things which are disruptive. Second part is entrepreneurship. That's where understanding how are we going to be resilient, how are we going to structure the cost model, how do we get into the market. Like Jio was one of the biggest examples that I saw of how you can capture market. Like the guy gave free internet to the entire country, got them hooked onto the platform, got them hooked onto the network. It's not innovation, it's entrepreneurship, right? So those are like the things that cannot be taught. It's not something that can really be taught. You get it either as a knack or you get it with experience. So those are like the things that also make a startup equally stronger outside of just innovation and like technical acumen. So entrepreneurship is something that I see with startups. If I'm like an angel investor, I see that, okay, ये बंदा कितना resilient है, या बंदा या बंदी कितना resilience है इनमें. अगर कुछ नहीं चल रहा है, like, things are not going the way they want it to be, can they quickly pivot? Can they find a resolution? A lot of times the problem that I see, I had recently made a post about this, growth mindset ना मेरे को बहुत कम दिखने लगा है अभी लोगों में. Everybody is trying to be like know-all, where they are like, हाँ मुझे ये भी पता है, मुझे ये भी पता है, मुझे ये भी पता है, मुझे ये भी पता है. But as soon as something comes in their territory which they do not know, they fall. They immediately fall. They collapse. They're like, I don't know what to do. But in those situations, if there is a person who has a growth mindset, who is comfortable with challenges, who's like, nahi aata yaar, it's okay, we'll figure it out. They are not mentally breaking down at that point. They are okay with months of failure, with a year of failure, but they know how to get back on their feet. That makes a startup a good company. So that's the kind of like attitude that I like to see with startup founders, that hey, it's okay if things fail. How are you going to come back?
Even NVIDIA CEO, वो जब Stanford गए थे ना, at Stanford, Jensen Huang said that you guys are surrounded by top entrepreneurs and you have an expectation set that you're going to make the best next Twitter, Google, Facebook, etc. And that is the reason they're not resilient. And he just said bluntly at Stanford, ki yaar, you guys are not resilient as someone who comes from a small college in Mississippi, Alabama, etc. And that is so true as well. You agree, right?
Yeah. I think like he had mentioned this as well, that I really wish that you fail in things that you're doing so that you understand how to recover from it. So yeah, I 100% agree to that. Like we always are... humanly, we are very focused on looking at the bright side, looking at the good things. We always see, oh, Mark Zuckerberg became like, a billionaire at such a young age. But how many Mark Zuckerbergs are out there? How many people tried to be Mark Zuckerbergs and failed? He's probably one of the very few who kept at it. Even if it was not working, even if the days were bad, he did not like come up with the most successful product on day one. Same thing is with like a lot of other founders as well. It's not the case that they are like the first company and like within the next 2 months they are unicorn startups. That's not how it works. There's a lot of challenges that you have to go through, and it's only with the mindset that okay, I see that there is a light across the tunnel. That's the only thing that will make you cross the tunnel.
Totally. आपने AI की tech side ज़्यादा देखी as compared to research, as you said. So in this journey, what is something so shocking you've seen about AI?
What is something so shocking?
I can give you an example. So what Jan said from Meta Llama 3, उन्होंने बोला कि I was shocked that as more development is being in AI, deep learning, the previous papers and books are getting invalidated. क्योंकि पहले papers में क्या होता था, there's a function which was converging this way, parameters, बहुत सारी technical terms थी. Things how should happen working, पिछले papers are becoming invalidated because of how fast things are going on. Like people can have a future like AGI जो कभी सोचा नहीं किया था.
I kind of agree. Like I'll give you like my personal example. I remember Vegas में I was giving this session in AI4 conference. Las Vegas में हो रहा था. So I was giving a talk at that conference about text summarization. So I was talking about, it was part of like, part of the research that I was working on news summarization, and like there are components. It's not just like a text problem. It's also like understanding misinformation should not be represented in a summary that you're creating from a news article and things like that. So I was talking about transformer models, and I was sharing the difference between abstractive summarization and extractive summarization. And I feel like it's been like 2 years, 2.5 years. मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि तब से लेके अब तक I've lived a decade already. Because going from a basic transformer model like BERT models or Roberta models to GPT models, it's like it feels like we have moved a decade. That the speed is what I'm amazed at. And obviously, like the biggest thing was for this process is to get access to infrastructure. I don't know why people take it so lightly, or like people who are talking on LinkedIn that I see, like, everybody is talking about like the software stack, but nobody really talks about the infrastructure. I'm like, you cannot do this without the infrastructure. That is the biggest reason why a lot of startups cannot build their foundational models, because उनके पास infrastructure ही नहीं है. GPU नहीं रहेगा तो train किस पे करोगे तुम? So, like, just the speed at which we have moved is something that amazes me.
But because of this speed, like some startups cannot do what big tech companies can do. So in this scenario, what exit strategy you advise startups? कि कब pivot करके निकलना है? What is that point you suggest?
So I feel big tech companies are not focusing on industry use cases. They are focusing on the core tech. And that's where I'm like, startups should fill in the gap with industry expertise. This is something I'll 100% like, I can't like agree more to Sam Altman's advice. In one of the university lectures or something, he had shared that if you want to build a successful startup, find the smallest niche that you can find as possible. Like find the smallest market who's going to be your loyal customers, and then try to expand from that. Because big tech is doing the exact opposite. Big tech is trying to cater for mass people, and then they try to see, okay, like, financial companies का ये use case है, ठीक है, हम लोग अपने product roadmap में डाल देंगे कि ये इसके लिए कुछ document intelligence बनाना है, या medical use case में कुछ और है तो उनका niche हम लोग बाद में देखेंगे. And they're not focusing on these like niche problems. Big techs are very, very high level, breadth is what they're focusing on, and startups should be focusing on depth, which is which industry, what is the persona that I'm targeting, what is the exact solution that they would want. Use data that is exactly replicating the taxonomy that your users are going to need. Build or fine-tune models with that taxonomy, and build something which is extremely specific. That's what is going to help you like grow your user base. That's what I recommend to like startups.
So in scenario mein, how do you measure success in a startup? Like, is it, reaching X amount in terms of users, in terms of AI models accuracy? What are the measures you keep in mind in measuring a startup success from AI point of view?
Very, very different pillars, and varies for different startups or like the use case, I would say. So, and all of these are very important, right? Like it's, how do I explain this? imagine like you have a table with 10 legs. You have to make sure that all of the 10 legs are at least equal at every given point in time for that table to be stable. So that's the way that I look at startup success as well. It's not just about having the best model. It is also about making sure you're reaching out to the right leads, you're getting your customers on board. But that is not the only thing. You also have to look at your customer experience. Over time, are your customers staying with you? Are you looking at their feedback and incorporating that back in your product? How fast is your product moving? It shouldn't move too fast also. So, it's always this balance of different things. Amplification is another thing, How many people know about your product? How are you working for your marketing strategies? Are you going to enough conferences to meet new customers, to get to have more people learn about you? At the same time, think about partnerships. Partnership is what makes your startup like really, really resilient, or like, gives it a very, very strong foundation. For example, like Mistral collaborated with Microsoft, right? Like if Mistral was all alone, like cut off, siloed and just working on their own, they'll not reach the user base that they have reached now. They have collaborated with big tech. Similarly, a lot of other startups have collaborated with big tech. Even Perplexity that we're talking about today, they have not been running alone. They don't have their own lane to run alone. They have been collaborating with a lot of cloud providers, a lot of like other organizations. I think I saw a recent tweet by Arvind that they're collaborating with educational institutions to give out the Perplexity model for free for students to work on their assignments and things like that. So it's a lot of partnerships and collaborations and getting the word out there, taking feedback from your customers and users, incorporating, making sure you're running at a particular speed, not too fast, not too slow. So it's a balance of a lot of different things that really like calls out for success of a particular startup.
And अगर आपको name करना हो most important pillars of
it's very hard to like say. I feel personally customers is like the most important thing. Customer acquisitions. If you have customers, you will get everything else in place. If you have people really excited about your product, who are ready to use your product and ready to pay for that, that's it. Like that's, you have cracked like one of the biggest pillars. And then obviously when you have a ton of customers, you can go to an investor and say, I have 100,000 customers who are ready to pay me N number of dollars. Please fund my startup. That sort of a thing. I think like customer base is like the biggest pillar in my opinion.
And मैं ये क्वेश्चन इस कारण पूछ रहा हूँ because this is currently the toughest job market for many people, and many students who are not able to find a job, they might be getting into startups as backup, because currently the AI boom is taking away jobs, or there are limited jobs as well in the US, or startup is a big way to show up and अपना H1 भी खुद उसी तरीके से आप apply कर सकते हो. So in this space, like what do you think if someone wants to build a startup? What problem you have seen that is not solved currently? कैसे आप advise करोगे? Which problem to look into right now for startups?
I mean, I wish I can tell you like one magic startup idea that's going to become a unicorn startup in the next year. If I had that, I would probably have my own startup. But as I said earlier, like it's very important that you think of a niche. That is the most important thing that you should start with. Do a market research before you get into your MVP and like start building a prototype, or like UI ऐसा होना चाहिए, ये ऐसा होना चाहिए, model को इतना tune करना है, accuracy इतनी आनी चाहिए. All that will fall in place. That's a tech piece. Understand the business first. Who is your audience? किसके लिए बना रहे हो? Do a basic customer survey. If I'm saying that, okay, I'm going to create, for example, right? Like if I want to create something like Firefly, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to help creative artists be more productive with their artwork. I'll go interview a few artists. I'll see, okay, what is that you're doing every day? What are the challenges that you're facing? If you had a potential product like this, how would it help you? How much would you be willing to pay for this? This is the market research you need to do. That's the first thing I would recommend anybody to do. Like if you are thinking of a problem, think from a business perspective, understand what is the audience, and then start building up the tech. Tech is not hard to build. With Copilot and with all the coding assistants, it's not going to be hard for you to build the tech. It's not going to be hard for you to build the UI. It is the business problem that you need to first target and then reverse engineer it into okay, this is probably the best model that I can use. मॉडल से काम नहीं चल रहा यार, लगता है खुद का मॉडल बनाना पड़ेगा, डेटा किधर से लेके आना है. All that will fall in place once you have your business problem set aside.
Got it. Now, last final questions about the future of AI. So you mentioned in your LinkedIn post that Dell CEO has mentioned that most of the GPU, most of the power will be used in terms of, inference as compared to building models in the future. Yeah. So, but Apple just released their private cloud compute, तो वो ज़्यादा power को cloud में बेच रहे हैं. So what do you think is the future of energy consumption?
So this is one of the other biggest things that I'm seeing. I have seen this 3-4 times at least in the last week, about carbon neutral model training. How do you build models that are having the least energy consumption? That is going to come as a challenge. You cannot have a very, very high compute workloads running for a very long period of time, because you're ending up consuming a lot of electricity, a lot of hardware, which is going to impact your cost and the economics of your entire country. So those are the things that people are now focusing on. So it always comes in waves. If you look at the history 30 years ago, it always comes in waves. There are times when people are very, very focused on algorithms and how do we innovate the algorithms. There are times when people are extremely focused on hardware, okay, we need to get better hardware. We currently don't have enough hardware to support these models. So now we are at a point where we're okay, we have hardware, we have really efficient hardware. Can it be better? Sure, it can be better, but we need to be energy efficient. So our algorithms, the way we are building these, have to be energy efficient. Plus comes with regulations. That's the way I see we are moving ahead, where we're okay, we need to be more sustainable, we need to be cost efficient, we need to make it more accessible, both in terms of model building purposes and inferencing purposes. And that's where this point came in, right? Abhi, there will be all of these models integrated in all of our applications. For example, I'll tell you, my fridge, I did not know about this about my fridge. My fridge has a model running on the back end where I have a tablet sort of a thing outside my fridge, and जो भी मैं खाना store कर रही हूँ ना fridge के अंदर, there is an internal camera, and on the outside I can use this tab to see what are the different dishes that I have in my fridge. So it auto detects, it auto tags all the products that I have in my fridge. Add another layer on top of it. It can automatically start prescribing me that, hey, you have these 4 ingredients in your fridge, you can possibly make this dish. Wow. So I'm seeing all of these are getting very, very integrated with our days, everyday applications. And when that happens, that's where inferencing power will be running the most. Not so many people will be focused on building new models. Now people will be thinking about what are the innovative ways that I can build applications out of it and get it in hands of the users.
That's a very good example. Ab is case mein more AI models will start, implementing things locally, so it's faster. Fridge is doing many things, maybe on the cloud, maybe locally, but if more things happen locally, it will be faster, more secure. Now, in terms of AGI future, what do you think if X thing happens, you will say कि AGI is here. कुछ लोग define करते हैं कि if AGI clears the Turing test, then AGI here. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि if it solves a particular problem, then AGI here. What is something in your mind you think if AI can do this, that means AGI is here?
I feel it's a deadlock. In my opinion, it's always going to be a deadlock. It's always this chor police, chor zyada smart ke police zyada smart. It is always going to be are cybersecurity professionals smarter, or are the hackers smarter? You can keep building and safeguarding your cyber efforts as well as you can, but there'll still be hackers. They will find vulnerabilities. So it's always going to be that tug of war between doing one or the other. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Wow, very well said. मेरे लिए favorite is the example that Aravind Srinivasan gave. He said that currently our AGI goals are for an intern. AGI is here if you want to call ChatGPT an intern. But if you want to consider AI being a researcher, उसे आप problem दो, let's say, give it a paper of transformer and it gives you ChatGPT 3 or 2 or 1. That is the point when a PhD level AI will be there, then he will call AGI is here. So it's so cool.
Yeah, to be very honest, right? Like AGI का कुछ solid definition ही नहीं है. Like everybody have their own definition of AGI, of what AGI means to them. For me, I feel like abhi I have worked on the ML models so much that I will never agree that it can replace human thinking, because at the end of everything, right? Like a machine learning model is as good as the data that it's been fed. We've been hearing it, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Your ML model will be as good as the data that you are going to provide it, to train it, and things like that. So, if there is a knowledge that exists in the world, which is documented, your model is going to be as smart as that knowledge available to it. But if you want to build an entirely new product, or like, imagine times where we don't have aircrafts or like helicopters and things like that. Can a AI model innovate on things that does not exist? That is the extrapolation I'm talking about. Like right now what we are doing is we have like a bunch of data and we are training the model on that data, and we are expecting it to do like, connect the dots, give me answers about everything that's in this secure, in this like, closed database, in this closed like knowledge base. The day it starts going out of that knowledge base and starts thinking on its own, which I don't see that happening like anytime in the near future, where it's like able to think out of the box, think out of the knowledge base that it currently has, starts innovating. For example, can a model, अभी मैं बैठ के मैंने कुछ painting बनाया, right? Like with an entirely new batch of colors, very new patterns, and like, things that no other artist has ever done, right? Can a model infer from that? Can a model build something like that on its own? No, it's always going to, at a pixel level, when it's building a painting, at a pixel level, it's interpolating the points that's being fed to it. So it's going to build things that it has already seen in the database. It's not going to do something that's out of it. So that is where I feel that my definition of AGI is the day it goes out of this knowledge base and tries to do something that it has never seen before. That's the day I would say like AGI is here.
Now, let's talk about your background. How did you get the title of AI advisor? Like getting the data science degree from Columbia, coming from India. What were the key things shaping you towards AI advisement?
I would say like there were different twists and turns in my journey as well. So I did my undergrad in computer science. Started off, I did not enjoy classes like operating systems and system architectures and networking. That was not one of my favorite subjects. But we did have a subject in our second year which was about AI, which was about like, things like state machines and statistics and how you can build statistical models and all that. That was something that I really, really enjoyed. And some of it also stems back because my mom, in the later years of her career, she was working as a data analyst. Like she was a research officer at a B school, where what she was doing was more in data analysis. She used to use IBM SPSS as a tool to do like ARIMA and run like linear regressions and like logistical regressions and things like that. So I got a little bit familiarity from there, where I was like, okay, like, I understand what these things are. Because after school, I used to spend my time at my mom's office. My grandparents had passed away and I was like a single child, so nobody was there at home to take care of me. So my routine was like, okay, school's done, now I just go to my mom's office, spend some time with her at work. Like I'll just sit in the library, read some books, just sit beside her, learn what she's doing and things like that. So I had like a bit of familiarity with like all this like data analysis and stuff like that. So when I first came across this subject in my undergrad, I was like, yeah, this is really interesting. And like, I was able to pick it up very fast. So that sort of became a motivating factor that, oh, like, I'm good at it, or like, I'm able to go out of my way to do interesting things. That eventually led for me to like, hustle and find like, okay, I need to do some internships. So internships back in India. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but it was more like you only do one internship. It's mostly in the 4th year, and then you just like graduate. But I was like, no, I want to do an internship now. I tried going out for career fairs, which was for like 4th years, and I was like, okay, somebody give me an internship, and they were like, no, this is only for 4th years, तुम यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे हो? किया बहुत लोगों से बात किया, and then finally TCS was one of the companies which offered me my first internship. They were like, okay, Sensex and Nifty का data analytics करेंगे, prediction model बनाएंगे, learned a ton of things. R was the programming language that I was using. So that's how I got into this space, and it was a ripple effect, you know, one after the other. एक internship खत्म किया, फिर दूसरा कुछ उठाया, फिर professor के साथ थोड़ा research किया. So at that point in time, I was like, machine learning research is what I want to do. Data science and ML, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Felt very strongly about academia because I was like, I love this, and also probably biased because my mom was coming from a B school, and वहाँ पे भी मैंने सब professors को देखा था. So it was like, you know, this big dream ki, oh, like if I become a professor, I'll achieve everything, you know, that'll be like the all and all of everything that I want to do. Got into that, wrote a bunch of research papers, went to conferences, presented my research papers, it got published. So all that were like, you know, very exciting. I was starting to reach out to people on LinkedIn, like I told you, DeepMind. There were people working at like Cisco Research at that point in time, I remember. I was reaching out to them and I was like, okay, what do you do? You know, this is very exciting. Understood those side of things, and I was like, okay, I want to do masters. So I was contemplating between masters and PhD, and I was just telling my mom about this, and she was like, obviously my mom wants me to do PhD because my mom wants me to keep doing one degree after the other forever. But mommy was like, with PhD, you know, you're going to spend another 5-6 years studying. You've just graduated. तुमने अभी 4 साल कॉलेज में किया, फिर 5-6 साल कॉलेज में, like मतलब 10 साल कौन कॉलेज में बिताते हैं? They're like, maybe try thinking कि masters is something that you want to do. I was like, okay, ठीक है. I'll start with masters. If I like it so much and I know that this is the direction I want to go into, I'll continue with my PhD. I started looking at universities. I was like, computer science nahi karna mere ko. Like, and 2017 is when I came here, right? So I was looking at these things at like 2015, 2016, and universities पे था ही नहीं data science, ML का courses ही नहीं था. They were like गिन चुन के some universities had like ML data science. Columbia was one of them. So obviously Columbia was my dream university, considering it's like prestigious or like, you know, and expensive and everything. So I was like, ठीक है. Apply kiya, I got into Columbia, and I was like, okay, now we'll figure it out. Obviously didn't have the financial means whatsoever to like come there, but then I was like, okay, I'll figure it out, you know, kaise bhi karke I'll figure it out. So somehow through my curriculum, I did know that machine learning is what I want to do, but I'm just not built for research. Because I felt there are like certain things about my personality where I was like, I like to look at quick results. I want to see that, okay, मैंने कुछ काम किया, अभी now I have the n number of lines of code, right? That is a very quick way for me to like measure success. Okay, I've written this works. I've written this works. And I feel the other part of my personality was I'm kind of extrovert. I did not realize that until very late that I am extrovert, and I like spending time talking to people and with like presenting at conferences and things like that. I like that aspect of it. So I was like, okay, maybe applied research or like applied data science is what my calling is. Luckily, like my Columbia was sponsored like by the professor's scholarship, so I was working with him. So I was working with him as a RA, and not did it just pay for my university, but I also was getting a very, very hefty stipend every month. So it was like pretty good. So I was actually cash positive.
ये बहुत रेयर है, कोलंबिया में बहुत रेयर है मिलना.
Exactly, that's what I heard. मैंने जिससे भी बात करने का ट्राई किया कोलंबिया में स्कॉलरशिप, they were like नहीं है, मास्टर्स के लिए कुछ नहीं है. I kept reaching out to professors. I was like, कुछ तो मिलेगा. And I was like, I don't want to like, you know, this is like my personal this thing that I'm like, why should I not get the same opportunity as somebody else just because I don't have the money? I was like, I want to get the same opportunity. I am capable, and I was like, I'll use my brain. I'll do some work which helps me do this. And somehow this professor replied, and he was like, yeah, I have a research assistantship which was not funded by Columbia. It was for scikit-learn, but it was funded by a different company. And that's how this happened. Like, I could get my scholarship, and by the time, I still remember, मैं tax returns भर रही थी after I graduated. I was like, यार मास्टर्स में मैंने कमाया है जितना डाला है उससे ज्यादा मैंने कमाया है. आई वाज लाइक वाओ, दिस इज अमेजिंग. सो दैट वाज अ वेरी गुड एक्सपीरियंस, बिकॉज यू नो तब ऐसे लग रहा था यार कुछ होने ही नहीं वाला है, कैसे तो हाथ पैर मार रहे हैं, बच जाए, कर ले, कैसे तो करना है करके. दैट्स हाउ इट स्टार्टेड, बट समहाउ थिंग्स फेल इन प्लेस, इट वर्कड आउट. बट या ड्यूरिंग दैट प्रोसेस आई रियलाइज, लाइक व्हेन आई वाज वर्किंग ऑन scikit-learn, तभी मेरे को लगा कि डूड मेरे को प्योर रिसर्च में नहीं जाना है, because I don't want to stick with like theoretical side of things. I want to work on applied side of things. I want to see this, you know, being integrated in an app where I can use it, where I have a UI, where I can test it out. So that is the side of things that I wanted to work on. So, and obviously I didn't have any industry experience, right? Like I was did my undergrad, college mein masters kiya. So everything was like software engineering, ML focused, no industry specialization. So that's when like IBM का internship came up, and IBM में तभी they were looking for a customer facing data scientist role, which is very exciting क्योंकि what you're doing is IBM Watson Cloud जो है वो इसके products you're like building on that and you're serving it to the customer. So whoever is like using IBM का cloud. So I got to work with United Nations, I got to work with World Bank, I got to work with a bunch of like financial companies, healthcare companies, state governments. So हर यूज केस अलग अलग था, लाइक उनका डेटा सेट अलग था, कुछ का कंप्यूटर विजन था, कुछ का नेचुरल लैंग्वेज प्रोसेसिंग मॉडल्स थे. सो इट वाज वेरी वेरी डिफरेंट, एंड दैट वाज लाइक अ वेरी गुड लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस फॉर मी. I obviously like continued into my full time after doing my internship at IBM. What I was doing at Google was also very, very similar. So I had moved from what I was doing at IBM to doing the same thing at Google. So I was still doing a data scientist role at Google. But during that time, somewhere between IBM and Google, I had worked with two different startups. So PyTorch Lightning and DeepChecks. So ये दो startup के साथ मैंने part time काम किया था. And I loved it. क्योंकि it was sort of like, you know, pushing me in a direction where I was like, oh ये भी नहीं आता, वो भी नहीं आता, ये भी नहीं आता, नया चीजें सीखना है. So wearing very different hats, कभी कुछ like product managers के साथ बैठ के हम लोग product पे brainstorm कर रहे हैं, कभी sales वाले बंदे के साथ बात कर रहे हैं कि like okay sales navigator कैसे use करना है, lead gen कैसे करना है. So it was a bunch of different things and we could see results. I saw like with PyTorch Lightning, इनिशियली जब हम लोगों ने स्टार्ट किया था, वी हैड 600 यूजर्स ऑन PyTorch Lightning, grew to 1.3 million users.
Wow. So PyTorch Lightning was the startup you were using at Google?
No. I was working at PyTorch Lightning. While I was at IBM, while I was briefly at IBM and like I was at IBM when I was working at PyTorch Lightning. So तभी I was on my F1 OPT. So I didn't have my H1B का restrictions. मैंने इस पे भी एक वीडियो बनाया है on how you can have 2 employers while on F1 OPT. So while I was at IBM, I was working at PyTorch Lightning as well.
Wow. So you're working for 2 companies together?
Yeah.
Oh, but like कैसे manage करते हैं लोग? Like people have like meetings, it can be at the same time, you know, you have to coordinate.
It was not bad to be honest, because the team that I was working with, काफी सारे लोग उसके like Europe में थे. So it was not bad because they knew that I'm doing my full-time job and doing this part-time. So it was very like रात को रहता था, नहीं तो weekends पे रहता था. So it was not very hard to like manage both, and it just gave me a lot of energy. So that was the motivation. मजा आ रहा था करके. So वो किया तो I was like startup में काम करके बहुत मजा आ रहा है. You know, because you can see impact. That is मैं Code with Harry के उसमें भी इंटरव्यू में मैंने उसको ये बोला था कि like you know working with a big tech company versus a startup में you can see that you have done something. बिग टेक में you're such a small piece of the puzzle, like इतना बड़ा कंपनी, इतने सारे एम्प्लॉयज, तुम इतना सा एक सॉल्व कर रहे हो प्रॉब्लम, तो तुम्हें समझ में ही नहीं आता कि तुम्हारा इम्पैक्ट क्या है. बट स्टार्टअप में यू कैन सी दैट मैंने ये चीज किया, उसकी वजह से ये चीज मूव हुआ. So it gives you a lot of like, validation and like motivation, happiness, whatever you may call it, that you're able to contribute to the success of that company, of that product. So I really love doing that. At one point I was like feeling bored at Google. I was like, I'm not getting that challenge at my day job that I wanted to get. So I was like, I don't want to like, compromise one over the other. So I was like, okay, let me find something that's going to be with a startup. So I decided I'm going to quit Google. I'll find something at a startup. Was looking at startups. I was like, okay, कौन से startups hire कर रहे हैं, मेरे को किस चीज में interest है, where am I like, very passionate about the product, where I'll be like, ठीक है, हफ्ते का 60 घंटे काम करना है, चलेगा मुझे, मैं करूंगी इस पे. I didn't really find that exact problem, that exact startup. So that's when one of my mentors from IBM, so she was at IBM when I was at IBM. She reached out to me. She was at Microsoft and she's a director. And she's like, hey, I'm at Microsoft for startups and my team is hiring. Do you want to join? And that's when I came across this role. So the first thing, like I'll tell you one thing that I was sold at, okay, I'll join this team. They were like, this team is like a startup. We don't know what are the OKRs. We don't know what are your job responsibilities exactly. Overall we know that, you're going to be working with startups. We want somebody who's an expert with like machine learning and AI. And we want somebody who's like passionate to talk to startups and help them with their solutions. But come with the expectation that the role is going to be ambiguous and you'll have to do a lot of different things. I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I was like, okay, I get to work with Microsoft as a great brand. I've been loving how Satya is like, doing his leadership. Everything that he's been doing, like with Mustafa Sulaiman or like with OpenAI, with all the great investments. And I just like love his leadership style. So I was like, I'll get to work at Microsoft, but with startups. I was like, this is the perfect combination.
So since you have a personal brand as well, आपके पास YouTube channel भी है, and you're an angel investor as well, right? So how do you integrate your personal values and vision into your work, whether it is your channel, whether it is your Microsoft work, or investing? So how do you integrate everything together?
Sure, I'll give you an answer that I do right now, but also an answer that the things that I was doing when I was just getting started. So it caters to like, different set of audiences. When I was getting started, it was important for me to explore. कि like, ज़्यादा चीज़ों का experience होना चाहिए, try out करना चाहिए, knowledge base बढ़ाना है. That was my intent when I was getting started. So I was saying yes to every opportunity that was coming my way. That okay, like, get involved with creating a workshop. Yes, I'll do it. A professor is reaching out to say that, hey, we have like this interesting ML project. Do you want to contribute? Yes. Like saying a lot of yes and like trying to gather a lot of experiences from different sectors. That's what I was doing initially. But now my vision has changed slightly where I'm like, okay, long term मुझे क्या करना है? आज से 5 साल बाद मुझे क्या चीज में जॉय मिल रहा है या मेरे को अपना डे टू डे कैसे दिखना चाहिए मेरे लिए. तो आई ट्राई टू अलाइन एवरीथिंग दैट आई एम सेइंग yes to with that goal of mine. So if that means that okay, like I should be going for like more networking events or like more startup events, talking to like people who are researchers, talking to students who are working on their entrepreneurial dreams, I will do that. So abhi for sure, like the number of I try to actively say no to more things than yes to more things because I have very limited time. So now it's all about, does this fit my future goals or not? If it does not, it's a clear no. That's how like I'm trying to like compartmentalize like my time and being like more productive with the time that I have. I would say like, like to your question, like specifically to your question, like how do I make sure that I'm aligning like my personal goals, my personal brand, my angel investing and everything. I always think that I'm a company, like, I'm working for a company, but Microsoft is not my career. Microsoft is a job which is part of my career. It does not define me. It does not define my career. My career is bigger than just Microsoft. My career is bigger than just my angel investment. These are all like parts of the puzzle that come together and contribute to my long-term goals. That's how I am seeing it. And the same way when I see that, I look at myself as a brand and I say, okay, like, I want to make sure that the audience that I have trusts me. So I will make sure that the content that I'm putting out is authentic, even if it does not overhype certain things that people might be overhyping. I will say the reality. Just because I'm an AI professional, I'm not gonna be like singing all good tunes about AI. I will talk about regulations. I will talk about responsible AI. I will talk about risks. So I want to make sure that I am true to myself. I am true to my brand, and that eventually becomes unique for everybody. On what are your personal values, what are the things that motivates you, what is career to you, what is personal brand to you. Not everybody has to have a personal brand which is their career. I've seen like people like I think एक और interview में मैंने बताया था like one person that I follow, his name is like Sujit Reddy, and I really like his personal brand. He's a full-time software engineer, but he's very passionate about calisthenics. So I follow him because I try to do a lot of things that he does on his videos, and like just practice these things at home. So I like how he has separated his personal brand in calisthenics versus his full-time career. People do that, right? Like people have their own identities, a mix of identities. So it's anything that keeps your boat running.
हम जिंदगी काटने थोड़ी आए हैं, हम जिंदगी जीने आए हैं, of course. Now, what would you define your future Aishwarya to be? Like, what do you imagine your future to be in terms of goals and stuff like that?
Dude, very cynical thing to say. I was telling this to my mom, and she's like, Aishwarya, कैसी बातें करती है तू? I was telling her कि I wish I'm working till my last breath. I'm like, I want to be working on the day I die. I'll happily die like that. That's the kind of death I would want, where I'm like, I'm working till the last day. I never want to retire because I love what I do. The day I'll be really sad is when I stop liking what I'm doing. That I have to like wake up and I'm like, shit yaar, abhi ye kaam karna hai. That day I'm like, I don't know what to do. That'll be a very sad day for me. Right now it's very nice because I'm like, ठीक है, कुछ नया project कर रहे हैं, कुछ नया सीख रहे हैं. Monotonous life is something that I don't enjoy. I like something new, something challenging, something different every day to look forward to. So yeah, I would want to like work for as long as I can and be like the oldest person working at a company or like working at my own company.
Thank you so much for inspiring, Aishwarya. It was so wonderful talking to you. I am very intrigued by your work. बहुत हमने interesting बातें की about AI. I got to learn so much. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm so amazed that you said yes to me as compared to so many things you say no to.
I mean, you're doing a great job, man. Like, I feel the kind of things that you share with a lot of people. I wish I watched your videos before I came to the US. My life would have been different. Like, I would have been ready for a lot of things that I was not ready for. So, yeah, I mean, you're sharing a lot of like, true real life challenges and like, how to navigate these things in the US. So it's a great service that you're doing to people.
Thank you so much.